In S2, when we ask for information about greenhouse gas emissions, we know that this is a new exercise for many and that guidance is necessary. So to support those using S2, the board decided to include a measurement framework in S2, which is based on concepts that may be familiar to many from the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, but that were further developed and enhanced for inclusion in S2. And we call this the measurement framework that's included in the mandatory application guidance to S2. This does several things. Firstly, and really importantly, it's designed to emphasise that companies are not required to do an exhaustive search for information on their greenhouse gas emissions. In particular, they're not required to actually collect the actual emissions data from everybody in their value chain in order to measure their Scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions. The entire framework for measuring Scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions in S2 is bounded by an idea designed to assist reporters, that they are required to use reasonable and supportable information, but they're not required to use information that is, unless it is available without undue cost and effort. That's designed to ensure that larger, more well-resourced companies have to work a little harder, but those who have fewer resources do not need to work so exhaustively to collect information to support their measurement. So that's one really important idea that's included in S2. S2 also emphasises that measuring greenhouse gas emissions for Scope 3 is often based on estimation, and that is just fine. We expect estimation to be used, and that's perfectly acceptable. This is really important as part of a change management exercise and to support the application of S2. But we want to make sure that this information is as robust as possible and that people are using direct measurement where they can. And that's where this measurement framework comes in. In S2, we set this out and we ask that companies seek to prioritise data that has particular characteristics. In particular, we say where possible to prioritise information that is directly measured, to prioritise information that is applicable to the specific activities of an entity or those in its value chain. We ask that the information be timely, that it be as close to the reporting date as possible, in effect, and that where possible, the inputs used are verified inputs. Now, if that isn't possible, that's okay. So more estimation is permitted, secondary data or industry averages is permitted, less granular information is available and applicable if that's what is possible for an entity. It's reasonable and supportable, it's available without undue cost and effort, but the main point is there's different approaches and it's all designed to enable everybody to get started measuring their Scope 3 greenhouse gas emissions in a proportionate way. Now, of course, the flip side of this is that it does mean that investors are going to have information that is subject to estimation. It does mean that investors are going to have information that may have been prepared using different methods, different sources of estimation, different assumptions between entities or in different circumstances for different entities. So a really important part of S2 is making sure that the information about the greenhouse gas emissions that a company has measured is accompanied by really thorough disclosure about the methods a company has used, the sources of estimates it has used, whether the data and inputs they've used has been verified or not. And that is an important companion to the actual emissions information itself to really ensure that investors can look at the package, understand what the information means and make valid comparisons between companies and for the time series of a company over time if they're improving and updating the way they do that measurement over time.